Hi, I'm Abigail Carter. My husband, Ethan, passed away from a sudden stroke last Thursday, but his family betrayed me by choosing his cousin's anniversary party over our grief, a betrayal that escalated when they demanded $15 million from his fortune. The agony of Ethan's death clings to me like a relentless shadow, a weight that crushes my chest each time I pass his empty office in our Seattle home. I'm 52, aunt to my 9-year-old niece, Lily, whom Ethan and I raised like our own after her parents' struggles, and we're navigating a world shattered without his vibrant spirit. That night, as Lily clung to me, her tears soaking my shirt, I called Ethan's parents, James and Linda, desperate for their comfort, only to hear Linda's distracted voice amid party music. "We're at Michael's 25th anniversary party, Abigail. Can this wait until tomorrow?" The words sliced through my grief like a blade, a wound I never expected from the family I'd loved for decades, setting the stage for a battle that would tear us apart. Our craftsman home in Queen Anne, with its stained glass windows and blooming lilacs, was Ethan's sanctuary, a place where we built 20 years of love. I stood in the kitchen, staring at a shattered vase I'd dropped when the police called, its fragments mirroring my broken heart. Ethan and I met at the University of Washington, where I was a sociology major, struggling through statistics. And he, an art history student, stayed late to help me, his vibrant explanations lighting up my world, his infectious laugh, his green eyes that sparkled when he painted, his boundless creativity. They were my home. We married at 30, defying skeptics who questioned our partnership. "You're my muse," he'd say, and I believed him. Our life a canvas of shared dreams. Ethan's career as an art curator at the Seattle Art Museum made him a beloved figure, his passion for emerging artists inspiring countless exhibitions. He didn't just curate art, he nurtured souls, his empathy legendary. We adopted Lily at 5, a joy after years of infertility, and Ethan was her rock, teaching her to paint, reading her fairy tales, his voice a lullaby through her fears. That Thursday, Ethan was driving to a gallery opening when a stroke hit him, causing his car to crash. He died instantly, the police said. At 3:42 p.m., his green eyes closing forever. I couldn't fathom it, touching his hand at the morgue, waiting for his laugh to break the silence. But the stillness was final, my heart breaking under a future without him. The hours blurred paperwork, funeral plans, questions I couldn't answer, cremation or burial. Service type? Favorite dress? Each choice felt like erasing Ethan. Friends rallied. Ellen, Ethan's colleague, offered to help. Mark, my coworker, sent food. Lisa, a high school friend, called daily. Their warmth was a lifeline, but Ethan's family's silence was deafening. I needed them, their 48-year marriage a guide through loss. But when I called that night, hearing party noise louder, clinking glasses, Linda said, "We're at Michael's 25th anniversary party." I choked out, "Ethan died. Stroke. He's gone." A pause, muffled voices, then Linda's distracted tone. "Are you sure? That's awful. We're in the middle. Can you manage tonight?" "We'll come tomorrow." I insisted. "He's gone. I saw him." James took the phone. "Was his estate updated? Call the lawyer tomorrow." Their dismissal, prioritizing Michael's party, was a second death, my diary noting. Their absence, my wound. Telling Lily was the hardest moment of my life. She came home from school, her paintbrushes in hand, her blue eyes searching mine. "Where's Dad?" He promised to paint with me. I knelt, tears falling. "Lily, Dad had a stroke and was in a car accident. He died today." Her confusion, "Can't they fix him?" broke me. When I shook my head, she wailed, collapsing into my arms. "I want Dad!" she sobbed, her small body shaking. I held her, our tears merging, the world outside indifferent to our shattered hearts. That night, as Lily slept clutching Ethan's scarf, I broke down in the bathroom. The door closed to muffle my sobs, grief a physical force stealing my breath. I thought of Ethan's family's parents, his cousin, how they'd always been distant, how Ethan had been the one to bridge the gap, to bring them together at holidays, to give generously despite their coldness. Now, they couldn't even pause their celebration to mourn him, to comfort Lily, to be there for me. The days before the funeral were a haze of unbearable tasks. I chose an urn, a sleek black piece with gold inlays, a nod to Ethan's love for art, but the act felt like a betrayal of his vibrant life. I picked music Joni Mitchell's Both Sides Now, a song we'd danced to on our first date, each note a memory of his arms around me. I coordinated with the funeral home, answered questions about programs, speakers, flowers, every decision a reminder of what I'd lost. My own parents drove from Portland, arriving the next day. Their presence, a quiet comfort as they held Lily, helped with arrangements, and listened as I poured out my grief. But Ethan's family called only once, their voices curt. "What time's the funeral? Do we need to dress up?" They didn't ask about Lily, didn't offer to help, didn't even mention Ethan's name. Their detachment was a fresh scar, a stark contrast to the love pouring in from friends, from my family, from Ethan's colleagues at the museum. I kept replaying that call in my mind, Linda's distracted tone, James's focus on the estate rather than their son's death. How could they care so little? Ethan had been the heart of his family, the one who brought everyone together, who mediated their petty squabbles, who gave generously without ever asking for anything in return. He'd been their rock, yet they couldn't even pause their celebration to mourn him. I thought of Lily, how she'd looked up to her grandparents, how she'd run to them at family gatherings, her laughter filling the room as James tossed her in the air. Now, she'd ask me every night, "Why didn't Grandma and Grandpa come?" I didn't have an answer, not one that wouldn't break her heart further. I held her close, whispering that we'd get through this together, but inside I was unraveling, the betrayal of Ethan's family a wound that festered alongside my grief. I walked through the house, touching the things Ethan loved: his desk, where he'd work late into the night, his glasses still resting on a stack of art catalogs, the bookshelf, aligned with novels he'd read to Lily, the photo of us at the beach, Ethan's arm around me, Lily building a sandcastle at our feet. Each memory was a dagger, cutting deeper as I realized I'd have to face this loss without the family I thought I'd gained through marriage. I sat on the porch, the lilacs swaying in the breeze, and wrote in my diary, "Their absence is louder than their words. They've chosen a party over Ethan's memory, over Lily's tears, over my pain." The funeral was days away, and I dreaded it not because of the goodbye I'd have to say to Ethan, but because I knew his family's presence would only deepen the wound they'd already inflicted. I thought of Lily, how she deserved better than this, better than a family who'd abandoned her in her darkest hour. I thought of Ethan, how he'd always protected us, how he'd taught Lily to be brave, to stand up for what's right. I knew I had to be that for her now, to shield her from the family that had failed us both. But as I sat there, staring at the empty chair where Ethan used to sit, I couldn't shake the dread of what might come next. James's words about the estate, Linda's dismissive tone, they weren't just grieving poorly. They were calculating, their absence at the funeral a sign of something darker. The Seattle dawn felt cruel without Ethan. His family's choice of Michael's anniversary party over our grief a betrayal that deepened at the funeral, their indifference a stark contrast to the genuine sorrow of others. I woke that Monday with a heaviness in my chest, the reality of the funeral pressing down like a storm cloud. Lily was already awake, sitting on her bed in her green dress, the one Ethan always said made her look like a forest sprite clutching his scarf, her blue eyes red from crying. "Do I have to say goodbye to Dad today?" she asked, her voice small, her hands trembling as she held the scarf tighter. I knelt beside her, brushing a tear from her cheek, my own eyes burning. "We're going to celebrate him, sweetie," I said, though my voice trembled, the weight of the day threatening to break me. "We'll say goodbye, but he'll always be with us." She nodded, but her grip on the scarf didn't loosen, and I felt my heart crack a little more, knowing the pain she was carrying, the pain we were both carrying, was something no child should ever have to bear. The funeral chapel was a sea of familiar faces, Ethan's colleagues, friends, and my own family filling the pews, their presence a quiet comfort in the storm of my grief. I'd spent hours choosing every detail: the urn, a sleek black piece with gold inlays, a nod to Ethan's love for art, its elegance a reflection of his taste. The music, Joni Mitchell's Both Sides Now, a song that had played on our first date, each note a memory of his arms around me. The flowers, white lilies, Ethan's favorite, their soft petals a stark contrast to the hardness of my grief. I wanted the service to honor him, to reflect the man who'd inspired countless artists as a curator, who'd loved Lily like his own, who'd made me feel like the only woman in the world. But as I stood at the entrance, greeting guests, I kept glancing at the door, waiting for Ethan's family, hoping they'd show up early to help, to share this burden, to show they cared. A text came 20 minutes before the service. "Traffic's bad, running late." My stomach sank, the hurt rising like bile in my throat, but I pushed it aside, focusing on Lily, who held my hand like a lifeline, her small fingers trembling in mine. They swept in as the seats filled, Linda's perfume sharp, James adjusting his cufflinks, Michael in a suit that still carried the faint scent of champagne from his party. "The traffic was awful," Linda said, hugging me briefly, her embrace cold and perfunctory, and Michael had to wrap up some loose ends from the celebration. Her words were a dagger, as if Ethan's funeral was a minor inconvenience compared to their festivities. I forced a smile, nodding, but inside, I was screaming. How could they be so callous? This was their son, their cousin, the man who'd given them so much, and they couldn't even show up on time to honor him. Lily tugged at my hand, her voice a whisper. "Why are they late, Aunt Abigail?" I knelt, brushing her hair back, my heart breaking at the confusion in her eyes. "They got stuck, sweetie." I lied, unable to tell her the truth that they'd chosen a party over her dad's memory, over her pain, over mine. During the funeral, their indifference was a glaring wound. Linda dabbed at dry eyes, a performance for the crowd. James checked his watch, his impatience palpable. Michael scrolled his phone, barely glancing at the urn. Ethan's colleagues, in contrast, wept openly, their grief a mirror to mine, their whispered stories of his kindness a lifeline. Ellen, his colleague, spoke of how Ethan had stayed late to mentor a young artist, his belief in their talent a turning point in their career. My parents, who'd driven from Portland, sat beside Lily, holding her hand, their eyes red as they listened to the eulogy. Anna, Ethan's sister, had flown in from San Francisco, her museum job paused, her eyes hollow from a sleepless flight. She sat beside Lily, holding her other hand, their shared green eyes brimming, a quiet bond in their loss. I dreaded the eulogy, my legs trembling as I approached the podium, but Lily's brave face in her green dress gave me strength. I spoke of Ethan's creativity, his terrible puns that made us groan, his fierce love for Lily, his obsession with real maple syrup. "He put family first," I said, my voice cracking, the irony bitter as I glanced at his family, already gathering their coats, eager to escape. I shared a memory of our last Christmas, Ethan surprising Lily with a set of watercolor paints, his laughter filling the house as they painted together, their hands covered in color. I wanted the room to feel him, to remember the man who'd given so much, but his family's detachment made it clear they'd already moved on. I thought of the nights we'd spent on our porch, Ethan's arm around me as we watched the sunset, Lily painting at the table, her voice full of wonder as she showed us her creations. Those moments were gone now, stolen by a stroke, and the family who should have been here to honor them couldn't even pretend to care. At the reception in our home, their detachment grew sharper. Linda and Michael sat in the living room, accepting condolences like they were the mourners, while I moved through the house, a ghost thanking guests, accepting casseroles I'd never eat. Ethan's colleagues' wives managed food. Ellen and Lisa tidied, their support a quiet strength. Susan shielded Lily from overwhelming well-wishers. Michael organized cleanup, their love a balm where Ethan's family failed. I overheard James by the drinks table talking to Uncle Charles. Ethan was top tier. His fortune must be huge, plus investments. Abigail's set. His callousness, reducing Ethan's death to a payout, made my stomach churn. I didn't confront him, too drained, my focus on Lily, who clung to Susan, her green dress a beacon of Ethan's love. My diary noted, their greed, their absence. Ethan's fortune surfaced in a funeral director's mention, but I couldn't face it. Thomas, our lawyer friend, advised waiting. "You and Lily are secure." Ethan planned well. As guests left, Linda, James, and Michael made quick excuse traffic, meetings offering perfunctory hugs, no offer to stay. Anna, Susan, and Michael remained. Susan preparing the guest room, Michael the sofa. "We're here," Susan said, her hug fierce, a promise Ethan's family never made. That night, Lily asleep beside me, I felt the void of their love, memories of family gatherings where Ethan had been the glue, where I'd thought I belonged, revealing a pattern of neglect now laid bare. Friends support Ellen's casseroles, Mark's calls filled the gap, but Ethan's family's betrayal, choosing Michael's party over our grief, was a wound that festered, my diary noting, "Their coldness, muresolve." I kept thinking about Lily, how she'd looked at her grandparents during the funeral, her eyes searching for the love she'd once known. She deserved better than this, better than a family who'd abandoned her in her darkest hour. I thought of Ethan, how he'd always protected us, how he'd taught Lily to be brave, to stand up for what's right. I knew I had to be that for her now, to shield her from the family that had failed us both. But as I lay there, staring at the ceiling, I couldn't shake the dread of what might come next. James's words about the fortune, Linda's dismissive tone, they weren't just grieving poorly. They were calculating, their absence at the funeral a sign of something darker. I wrote in my diary, "They didn't come to mourn Ethan. They came to claim what they think is theirs." The days that followed were a quiet storm, a mix of grief and preparation, as I waited for the inevitable confrontation, knowing that when it came, it would change everything. The Seattle summer sweltered as Ethan's family's betrayal deepened, their dismissal of our grief for Michael's anniversary party, a prelude to their audacious demand for $15 million of Ethan's $20 million fortune, a greed that would unravel at a family confrontation. 2 weeks after the funeral, I was sitting at the dining table, surrounded by insurance forms and Lily's grief counseling notes, trying to piece together a life without Ethan. The weight of his absence was a constant ache, a void that echoed in every corner of our Queen Anne home. Lily was at school, her teacher's updates a lifeline as she navigated her grief through art therapy sessions, her painting a way to feel close to Ethan. The doorbell rang, pulling me from my haze, and through the peephole, I saw James and Linda, James in a crisp polo, Linda adjusting her earrings, their expressions a mix of determination and feigned concern. Their unannounced visit, after weeks of silence save for vague texts like, "Thinking of you," stirred unease in my gut, a premonition of what was to come. "We thought we'd check in," Linda said, breezing into the house as if nothing had happened, her tone light, almost cheerful. "Lily's at school? Good, we can talk openly." Her words, laced with intent, sent a chill down my spine, but grief dulled my instincts, and I let them in, my diary noting, their intrusion, my dread. I made coffee, slipping into hostess mode, though their presence felt like an invasion of the sacred space Ethan and I had built. They settled in the living room, James eyeing Ethan's latest painting, a gift for Lily that hung on the wall, a vibrant abstract piece we'd used to decorate her room. "Nice artwork," he said, his casual tone jarring against the raw grief that still clung to every corner of the house. "Ethan painted it for Lily," I said. The past tense a knife in my heart, the memory of those painting sessions flooding back Ethan's hands guiding hers, their laughter filling the room as they created together. After stilted small-talk Lily's art class, Linda's garden club James cleared his throat, his serious matters voice emerging, the same tone he'd used when he'd once asked Ethan for a loan years ago. A loan Ethan had quietly refused. "Abigail, we need to discuss your situation," he said, his eyes sharp, his tone calculated. "Your situation?" I echoed, the word tasting bitter, a reminder of their absence at the funeral. "Your financial situation," Linda clarified, glancing at James with a look that made my stomach twist. "Now that you're adjusting without Ethan," their implication hit like a slow poison, disbelief rising as I grasped their intent. "Are you asking for money?" I said, my voice flat, the question surreal against the backdrop of my grief. James leaned forward, his tone cold and businesslike. "Given Ethan's success and fortune, you're in a position to help family. We're proposing $15 million for our retirement, to fund Michael's new gallery, and to secure the family's future. That leaves more than enough for you and Lily." Linda nodded, her embarrassment fleeting. "We're aging. Costs are rising. It's practical, Abigail." The audacity stole my breath. Ethan's body wasn't cold, Lily's grief a daily battle, yet they saw his death as a windfall. "You want $15 million meant for Lily's future?" I said, my voice trembling with disbelief. The number so staggering it felt like a physical blow. "The niece you ignored when I called, sobbing, because Michael's party was more important?" Linda flinched, her eyes darting to the floor, but James pressed on, his voice cold. "We've apologized for that timing. Ethan was our son, we supported him through everything. It's fair." "You supported him by missing his funeral?" I snapped, rage surfacing, my hands shaking as I set down my coffee cup, the liquid sloshing over the rim. "Ethan died, and you're treating it like a business deal." James's face hardened, his tone sharp. Ethan knew driving in that storm was risky. He should have been more careful. Now we're discussing how his assets help family. Blaming Ethan for his death, demanding his legacy, ignited a fire in me that burned through the fog of grief. I thought of Ethan's quiet generosity, how he'd paid for Michael's art school, how he'd given James and Linda loans they never repaid, how he'd always put family first, even when they didn't deserve it. And now, they were here, in our home, demanding $15 million as if it were their right, as if Ethan's life, his love, his laughter, his legacy meant nothing more than a payout. I thought of Lily, how she'd come to love her grandparents, how she'd spent summers with them, how she'd trusted them to love her back. Now they'd shown her what they truly valued, not her, not Ethan, but money. "Get out," I said, my voice low, shaking with fury. "Abigail, be reasonable," Linda began, her tone patronizing, as if I were a child throwing a tantrum. "Get out!" I screamed, standing, my anger a force that propelled me forward. "How dare you ask for Ethan's money? How dare you blame him? He was worth more than you'll ever be, and you couldn't even mourn him with us." They stared, shocked I'd always been the quiet daughter-in-law, the one who smiled through their slights, who hosted their holidays, who loved them despite their flaws. "We deserve respect," James said, rising stiffly, his face red. "Respect is earned." I shot back, my voice trembling with rage. "You've earned nothing but shame. Leave before Lily hears what her grandparents really are." They left, Linda muttering about ingratitude, James about reconsidering our relationship. I sank to the floor, rage and hurt colliding, the betrayal of physical weight that pressed against my chest. I thought of Lily, how she'd come to love her grandparents, how she'd spent summers with them, how she'd trusted them to love her back. Now, they'd shown her what they truly valued, not her, not Ethan, but money. I couldn't let her see this side of them, not yet, not while her grief was so raw. But when I picked her up from school, her small voice broke through my resolve. "Did Grandma and Grandpa bring something?" she asked, her blue eyes searching mine, her hope a dagger in my heart. She'd seen their car from the school window, her innocence expecting love where there was none. "They came to talk grown-up things," I said, shielding her, my voice tight. "Did they ask about Dad's money?" she asked, her perception startling me. "I heard Grandpa at the funeral saying we'd get lots because Dad died." Her words, echoing James's greed, made my stomach churn. "Money doesn't replace Dad," I said, my voice cracking as I pulled her into a hug. She nodded against my chest. "I'd give it all to have him back," my diary noted. Their greed, her heart. I called Anna, Ethan's sister, who'd been a rock through the funeral, recounting their demand. $15 million? She roared, her voice shaking with anger. "Ethan would be livid. He planned for you and Lily, not them." She urged me to see Thomas, our lawyer, to protect the estate, her voice a mix of fury and protectiveness. Thomas confirmed the fortune's strength. I was the sole beneficiary, with a trust for Lily's education, untouchable until she was 25. "They have no claim," he said, his tone reassuring. Contesting would fail, they'd be laughed out of court. Relief mixed with dread as I hung up, knowing this wasn't the end. Ethan's family's texts escalated. Linda's, "Family comes first." James's, "Discuss this like adults." Michael's, "You're selfish. They deserve better." Their hypocrisy, after skipping Ethan's funeral, burned like acid in my veins. I blocked their numbers, But their persistence grew. Linda, even appearing at Lily's school, stopped by staff I'd warned. Thomas sent a legal letter, halting their direct pressure, but their betrayal lingered, a dark cloud over the fragile peace Lily and I were trying to build. I sat in Ethan's study that night, his chair still holding the imprint of his presence, and opened his laptop, needing to feel him, to hear his voice, even if just through his words. I found a folder labeled For Abigail. A collection of letters and notes he'd written over the years, little messages of love he'd planned to give me on anniversaries, birthdays, milestones we'd never reach. One letter, dated a month before his death, caught my eye. Abigail, if you're reading this, my heart has given out, but my love for you and Lily never will. Everything I've built is for you, don't let anyone take that away. Tears streamed down my face as I read his words, his foresight, a shield against the greed I now faced. I knew what was coming, a confrontation I couldn't avoid, but Ethan's letter gave me strength, a reminder of the man I'd loved, the man who'd trusted me to protect our legacy, to protect Lily. I wrote in my diary, "Their demands are a declaration of war. But I'll fight for Ethan, for Lily, for us." The Seattle heat was stifling as I braced for a family meeting at my in-laws' Capitol Hill home. Their demand for $15 million of Ethan's $20 million fortune, a betrayal that fueled my anger, but Lily's courageous act would expose their greed in a way I never anticipated. 3 months after their audacious visit, their texts had turned relentless. James demanding a Sunday meeting at 2 p.m., Linda guilting me with messages about family duty, Michael accusing me of selfishness in voicemails that made my blood boil. I'd blocked their numbers after Linda tried confronting Lily at school, a violation Thomas countered with a legal warning, but James's final voicemail, "Be there. Bring Lily," left me no choice but to face them. "Do we have to go?" Lily asked, her voice small as she sat on her bed, clutching Ethan's scarf, her blue eyes searching mine for reassurance. "We should face this, sweetie," I said, my voice steady despite the storm inside me, trusting her strength to carry us through. She held a folded letter, her secret message from me and Dad, sparking curiosity, her determination mirroring Ethan's quiet resolve, my diary noting their greed, her bravery. Ethan's letter, found on his laptop, had fortified me. Written a month before his death, it revealed his foresight. "Everything I've built is for you and Lily, don't let anyone take that away." His words were a shield, a reminder of his love, and his trust in me to protect our legacy. Thomas confirmed the fortune's security. I was the sole beneficiary, with a trust for Lily's education, untouchable until 25. "They have no claim," he'd said, his tone firm. "Bring the letter to the meeting, it'll shut them down if they push." Lily's quiet strength, her something for Sunday, gave me hope, a flicker of light in the darkness of this betrayal, my diary noting. Their demands, our fight. Driving to my in-laws' home, where memories of happier times, Thanksgiving dinners, Christmas morning snow felt tainted, I saw cars of Ethan's extended family lining the street. James and Linda had staged an audience, likely to pressure me into compliance, their strategy as calculated as their greed. Lily held her folded letter, her face set with a determination that reminded me of Ethan before a big exhibition, his focus unyielding. "Ready?" I asked, my voice softer now, wanting to shield her, but knowing she needed to be part of this. She nodded. "I'm ready, Aunt Abigail." The living room was a tribunal, James in his leather armchair, Linda poised on the sofa, Michael scrolling his phone, Ethan's aunts and uncle's Aunt Susan, Uncle Charles, James's sister Ellen, and her husband Frank watching, with varying degrees of discomfort. "Thank you for coming," James said, his tone judicial, as if this were a boardroom, not a family gathering. "I want Lily here," I said, keeping her close, her small hand in mine a lifeline. "This concerns her future." Linda frowned, her lips pursing. "This isn't for children, Abigail. If it's not for her, it's not for you," I countered, my voice steady, refusing to let them exclude her from a decision that would shape her life. James launched into his prepared speech, his voice cold and businesslike. "We've supported Ethan through everything, his education, his early career. Given the $20 million windfall from his passing, it's fair you help family. We propose $15 million for our retirement, to fund Michael's new gallery, and to secure the family's future. That leaves more than enough for you and Lily." He handed me a document detailing their demands $15 million, broken down with chilling precision, likely calculated with Uncle Charles's financial expertise. Michael smirked, as if Ethan's death was a golden ticket for his failing business ideas. "You want $15 million of Lily's security?" I said, my voice shaking with incredulity, the number so staggering it felt like a physical blow. "Family takes care of family," Linda insisted, her tone dripping with false sincerity. "You ignored us when Ethan died." I shot back, my voice rising, the memory of that empty funeral chapel burning in my chest. "You chose Michael's party over his funeral, over Lily's grief, over me." Silence fell, Aunt Susan shifting uncomfortably in her seat, her eyes darting to the floor. "We've apologized for that timing," James said, his tone patronizing, as if my pain were a minor inconvenience. "We had commitments." "You chose a party over your son's memory," I said, my voice trembling with rage. Michael scoffed, finally looking up from his phone. "You're rich now, Abigail, while we struggle. Mom and Dad sacrificed for Ethan, you owe us." "What about Lily's future?" I demanded, my hands shaking as I gripped the edge of the table. "Ethan died to secure her, not your gallery." James stood, his face red, his voice booming. "We raised Ethan. You owe us respect." "Respect is earned," I said, my voice breaking, tears of anger burning my eyes. "You've shown nothing but greed." Uncle Frank looked away, Ellen glaring at James, the tension in the room palpable. Into the silence, Lily stepped forward, her folded letter in hand, her small frame trembling but her voice clear. "I have something to say," she declared, her words startling everyone, her bravery a beacon in the storm. Linda's condescending smile faltered. "Sweetie, adults are talking." Lily stood firm, her blue eyes blazing with a fire that reminded me of Ethan. "This is about Dad and what he wanted." She unfolded her letter, titled, "What You Owe Us," a piece she'd written with Ethan's guidance for a school project a year ago, a list of what family should be. Lily read aloud, her voice steady despite her tears. "Being there when Dad died? $0, not done. Helping Aunt Abigail when sad? $0, not done. Hugging me when I cried? $0, not done. Being real family? Priceless, not paid." The room froze, Lily's words echoing in the silence, a truth so raw it cut through their greed like a blade. James's hands shook, Linda's face crumpled, tears streaming down her cheeks. Michael stared, his phone forgotten. The letter, Lily's words inspired by Ethan's teachings, laid bare their selfishness, their betrayal, their utter failure as a family. I thought of Ethan, how he'd always protected us, how he'd foreseen this moment, how he'd given Lily the tools to stand up for what was right. "We're done," I said, taking Lily's hand, my voice steady now, bolstered by her courage. "Don't contact us without genuine change. You've lost the right to call yourselves family." We left, their shock trailing us, the room silent except for Linda's muffled sobs, my diary noting their greed, her truth. I held Lily close in the car, her small body trembling but her face resolute. "Did I do good, Aunt Abigail?" she asked, her voice small but proud. "You were incredible," I said, kissing her forehead, tears of pride mixing with my grief. "Dad would be so proud of you." She nodded, clutching the letter to her chest, a piece of Ethan that had given us the strength to fight back. I thought of the $15 million they'd demanded, the fortune Ethan had built through years of hard work, creativity, and integrity, a legacy meant for Lily, for our future, not for their greed. I knew this wasn't the end they'd fight. They'd scheme but Lily's act, Ethan's words, had shifted something in me. I wasn't just grieving anymore. I was ready to protect what Ethan had left us, to honor his memory by ensuring his family couldn't destroy what he'd built. We drove home, the lilacs lining our street a quiet reminder of the life we'd had, the life we'd rebuild, together. The Seattle autumn bloomed with a fragile hope, as Lily and I rebuilt our lives without Ethan, her letter at the family meeting a turning point that exposed his family's greed and opened a cautious path to redemption. while his $20 million legacy anchored our future. Leaving that Capitol Hill living room, Lily's courage echoing Ethan's values freed us from the toxic ties that had bound us to his family. In the car, I'd held her close, her small body trembling with the weight of what she'd done, but her blue eyes shone with pride. "You were so brave, Lily," I'd said, kissing her forehead, tears of pride mixing with my grief. "Dad would be so proud." She'd nodded, clutching the letter to her chest, a piece of Ethan that had given us the strength to stand up to his family's betrayal. That night, I wrote in my diary, "Their greed tried to break us, but Lily's truth set us free. We ignored James, Linda, and Michael's frantic calls and texts in the days that followed, their messages a mix of anger and hollow apologies that rang false against the memory of their actions. Thomas, our lawyer, monitored their attempts to push for the $15 million, but Ethan's fortune was ironclad. I was the sole beneficiary, with a trust for Lily's education, being untouchable until she was 25. "They have no legal standing," Thomas had assured me, his voice calm but firm. Ethan made sure of that. Relief washed over me, but I knew this wasn't the end of their scheming, only a pause. Anna, Ethan's sister, arrived from San Francisco a week after the meeting, her surprise visit a balm to our wounded hearts. Over dinner, Lily recounted her letter, her voice steady as she described the silence that had followed, the way Linda had cried, the way James's face had turned red with shame. Anna grinned, her green eye so like Ethan shining with pride. "That's pure Ethan creative with a heart. He'd be so proud of you, Lily." She turned to me, her voice softer. "They'll try again, Abigail. People like them don't give up easily when money's on the table." I nodded, my resolve hardening. They won't touch Lily's future. It's Ethan's wish. Anna's decision to move to Seattle, taking a curating position at the Seattle Art Museum, cemented her role as Lily's aunt, her painting sessions and stories keeping Ethan's spirit alive, my diary noting, "Her presence, our anchor." Ethan's parents, Susan and Michael, were a constant source of love, calling Lily weekly, sending care packages filled with her favorite snacks, visiting to bake Ethan's favorite lemon bars or take her to the sculpture garden, where she'd point out the art and whisper, "Dad would love this." Their warmth, their unwavering support, stood in stark contrast to the coldness of Ethan's own family, filling our home with the love we so desperately needed. Aunt Ellen, Uncle Frank's wife, became an unexpected ally, calling me a few days after the meeting. "We were horrified," she said over coffee, her voice trembling with emotion. "We thought it was a memorial fund discussion, not a money grab. They've always favored Michael. I'm so sorry, Abigail." Her honesty and support from Ethan's cousins like Sarah, Michael's daughter, who condemned her father's actions, eased the isolation, my diary noting, "Their support, our clarity." 6 months after Ethan's death, on our 22nd anniversary, a handwritten letter arrived from James and Linda, accompanied by an art kit for Lily, a thoughtful gesture that caught me off guard. "We've reflected on the pain we caused," they wrote, listing specific wrongs, skipping the funeral, demanding the money, failing Lily and me in our grief without excuses or demands. "We hope to show change through actions." I shared it with Anna, my heart torn between wariness and a flicker of hope. On Lily's 10th birthday, we met them at her favorite ice cream shop, boundaries clear. 15 minutes. Supervised. They focused on Lily, asking about her school projects, her painting, avoiding past conflicts, their effort tentative but genuine, my diary noting, their attempt, our caution. A year later, on Ethan's death anniversary, I invited them to a memorial, a test of their commitment to change. They came, subdued, bringing a photo album of Ethan. I'd never seen pictures of him as a boy, laughing at the beach, painting with Michael, a glimpse of the man I'd loved before he was mine. They stayed in the background, honoring Ethan without centering themselves, their presence a quiet acknowledgement of their past failures. Linda approached me afterward, her voice soft. "We've been seeing a therapist, trying to understand where we went so wrong. We failed you both, Abigail, and Ethan's memory." It wasn't full trust, but a start, my diary noting, "Their change, our hope." Michael took longer, his initial anger-vile social media posts about my selfishness fading after a year. At a coffee meeting, he confessed, "I was jealous of Ethan's success, of your strength. I'm working on it." It opened a door, not forgiveness, but possibility. My diary noting, his honesty, our maybe. I founded an art scholarship in Ethan's name, its work with underserved communities echoing his passion for nurturing creativity. It gave me purpose, connecting me to his values. My diary noting, his legacy. My mission. On the second anniversary of Ethan's death, Lily and I visited his favorite spot at Lake Harriet, tossing stones across the water as he'd taught her. "I think my letter helped Grandma and Grandpa," Lily said, her voice thoughtful, her blue eyes shining with a wisdom beyond her years. "They listen now, ask about me." Her compassion, Ethan's echo, moved me to tears. "He'd be proud," I said, wrapping my arm around her, the lake's gentle waves a reminder of the life we'd shared, the life we were rebuilding. Grief lingers, a quiet ache that surfaces in the still moments when I wake expecting Ethan's arm around me, when I reach for him to share a laugh, when I see Lily painting at his desk, her concentration a mirror of his. But it no longer defines us. Lily laughs again, her art classes filled with joy, her creations a testament to the love Ethan taught her. Anna, Susan, Michael, and allies Ellen, Sarah form our true family, built on love, not obligation. Ethan's $20 million legacy highs trust. His values guides us, untouched except for Lily's education and our needs, a fortress against the greed that tried to tear us apart. I think of Ethan's letter, his words a beacon. "Everything I've built is for you two." I've kept that promise, shielding Lily from the family that failed us, giving her the future Ethan dreamed of. If your family betrayed you in grief, share your story below. I'd love to hear how you found strength. Subscribe for more stories of resilience, of families broken and rebuilt, of love that endures through the darkest storms. Lily and I honor Ethan every day, living with the kindness and strength he taught us, his love a compass in a world remade. We've lost so much, but we've gained a clarity that guides us forward, a family not of blood but of heart. My diary notes, their loss, our redemption, and as I watch Lily toss another stone, her laughter echoing across the lake, I know Ethan is with us, smiling, proud, forever our muse.